construction workers, but not much is known about those who left their jobs in the aftermath of the quakes. Russell Wordsworth is a business lecturer at the University of Canterbury who's just finished a 2-year study about Cantabrians who walked off the job after the quakes, and he joins us now. Good morning. Just tell me, why did you do the research?
Morning, Melissa. Thank you. Well, I studied voluntary turnover prior to the earthquakes, and I had several studies going at the time which the earthquakes actually disrupted. At the same time, I noticed that staff turnover levels in many Christchurch businesses were increasing quite dramatically following the quakes. So I was interested in understanding how the quakes and events that followed impacted people's decisions to either stay or leave their jobs.
And what have you found out, Russell?
Well, some interesting findings, I think, that would interest employers. Probably the most interesting is that most of my participants were not dissatisfied in their jobs. They really loved their jobs. They were happy in their jobs. It was factors often external to the organisation that led them to leave. So very, very broad in perhaps a minute, I found 4 groups of employees that had left their jobs. So, and there's a temporal aspect to it as well. So people who left immediately following, particularly the February event, who were really impacted either through trauma or in terms of their personal circumstances in a negative way, made a very quick, snap decision to reprioritise things like family and to leave their jobs. Moving on a couple of weeks and months after the initial earthquake, many organisations were forced to close down for a prolonged period of time, forced their workers to stay at home, and it was during this period of time that many employees who weren't dissatisfied reprioritised. They took the time to critically reflect on what was important in life, be it family, be it a job they've always wanted to do but never had the sort of conviction to go and follow those careers. They made strong decisions to make quite dramatic career moves. A third group of people were already dissatisfied prior to the quakes, and then were able to leave their jobs because new opportunities came about in the labour market. So they were very positive in terms of how the earthquake had enabled them to leave. I suppose the saddest stories I heard were from people who left 8 to 12 months after the earthquakes, who really had reached a tipping point where they felt compelled to make a decision.
And it's also, I guess, a lot of the time when life in other places moves on, but of course Christchurch is still stuck in that. It must have been quite an emotional experience for you hearing all these stories.
Yeah, so if by emotion you mean sad, yes, there were sad stories. Yes, we shared tears, myself and my participants. But there are also very positive stories in terms of people being able to make quite dramatic career moves with positive outcomes, being able to regain some control in their lives and move on with their lives. So there were positive stories to be heard as well.
Obviously Christchurch is in a period of rebuilding. What are the messages to employers in this?
Yeah, I think I've got a few key messages for employers. Starting with the fact that following a crisis, turnover is inevitable. It's going to happen. It's something they should be planning for. The other message is that satisfied employees leave jobs. So often it's the employees that you least expect to leave that leave, and often without warning, without much notice. So you need to plan for this. The other thing that employers need to be aware of is downtime, disruption of routine can inadvertently lead to employees making decision to leave. So you need to think how you manage that. You need to stay engaged with employees. You need to target support for the longer term. So what we found post-quake was many organisations put on support programs, counselling in those initial weeks after the earthquakes, when in actual fact most people were on adrenaline runs. They were running on adrenaline, things were going well, they didn't actually need the support right then. They need the support 8, 10, 12 months, even a year down the line. And employers need to be aware of these longer term implications.
All right, thanks very much. Russell Wordsworth from the University of Canterbury.
Thank you for